all centered around communication mastery. First of all, if you're interested in a law enforcement career, we help you get hired. We help you through the very arduous hiring process. If you currently are a law enforcement officer, well, the police officer that you are today is not the police officer that you're going to be tomorrow. You're going to be learning and growing and developing all the time. And the third thing is we help business owners, entrepreneurs take the same skills that cops use to develop rapport and communicate with their clients and help you communicate with your client. So today we're going to be talking about compelled speech, another term for political correctness, and how we communicate. Again, the core of everything that we do here at Tomorrow's Police Officer, from the de-escalation training that we give to the relationships courses that we have to help you be more successful in your career, to help you be more successful with your family. And as with every 10 at 10, this is the first 10 minutes are all of the key bullet points. Everything that you have to know is contained in there. And then I'll spend another 10 minutes talking about in depth about those things that we covered during the first 10. So the first 10 is the bullet points. The second 10 is about diving a little bit deeper into those bullet points. So if you can stick around, please, by all means do. But if you only have a short amount of time, then I'll let you know when that first 10 minutes is up. So the bullet points on political correctness, I have my notes over here, so I keep glancing over here. And I want to make sure that technology is working well and that this is actually working correctly. And for some reason, I can't tell if it is or not. So, all right, it's working. So we're good. Compelled speech, political correctness. We got onto this topic because of a couple things in the news media recently, but mainly one of them was on the use of the R word. And a NASCAR driver who is a new upcoming NASCAR driver, and therefore kind of a celebrity in her own right. And she actually lives here in California, not far north from where I am, probably about half an hour or so from me. And she was online during a Twitch, or on the platform Twitch, and was doing a gaming session, and she used the R word, and she was taken to task over it, and she had to come out with a public apology. And it was the question was whether or not it was reasonable to ask of her. So what I wanted to be able to do is, there are people on the political correctness end that say, well, you can't say certain words. And the issue that I had was, are we elevating the R word to the level of the N word? And I don't think, I've taken a very strong stance on this. I don't think that is good. I don't think that that's right. They're two totally different things. Now, should we remove the R word from our speech because of the impact it has on other people? And this is the core concept. The impact that you have is really what you need to look at in your communication, not the intent that you have. You can have the best of intentions, but what is the impact that you're having on somebody else? And what's the goal? What's the impact that you want to have if you're using certain languaging? So, and not only that, but how do we talk to ourselves at the same time? What languaging do we use with ourselves? Are we building ourselves up? Are we increasing our ability to be a better person in this world? Or are we bringing ourselves down by the languaging that we use? Because that affects our self-esteem. And how we feel about ourselves ultimately is going to impact how we treat other people as well. So another thing that we want to look at is, how are we communicating? And are we only focusing on the words that we use? Let's talk today briefly about when we're communicating and the words, when we don't use words. Let me re-say that because I just jumbled it all up. Sometimes when we look at communication, we only look at the words that we say, and maybe even say how we say those words. But we communicate in a lot more additional ways than just words. We're communicating with our body language. If I say something to you and then give you a big eye roll, well, that changes the meaning. The words don't matter anymore. What matters is the eye roll. And is it an eye roll for humor? Is it an eye roll to show disrespect in the direction of whatever I was talking about? Or am I showing disrespect towards you? You know, I can remember very distinctly helping to raise teenagers, and I would say something and get the eye roll back. And I even made a joke a couple of times. I used the joke again because it was so powerful in the impact. Was you rolled your eyes at me so loudly I could hear them across the room, and I could almost feel the eye roll. So how we communicate with our body language, with our facial, how we turn away from something that we physically turn away from it sometimes. Those are all communications. So what I want you to think about today is very simple. What messages are you sending? Are they the messages that you want to send? And if they are the messages that you want to send, so you're communicating clearly, are those messages the ones that you should be sending? You know, in a relationship, when you're at home and you have conflict with the ones that you love that are in your household, I call them your cohabitants, whatever they are. They could be a roommate. They could be your spouse, your partner in life, your kids, your parents, whoever they are. There are times that you're going to be in some level of conflict. It could be because you're having a bad day and they say something and it just is an annoyance, but that annoyance is on top of everything else that you're dealing with. And you kind of snap at them, or you say something that isn't really loving or caring or supportive. The impact that it has on them, is that an impact that they deserve? You communicated clearly. You're annoyed. You're not happy. There's some people who say, well, everybody knows where they stand with me because I don't hold anything back. I don't have a filter. Okay, there's some benefits to that. At the same time, your lack of a filter, is it because you're being lazy in your communication? Are you using the excuse of no filter so that you don't have to worry about the impact that you're having on others? And that's kind of the message. When I look at the use of the R word, do I dismiss that because I don't want to have to be concerned about the impact it has? It allows me to be lazy by dismissing whether or not I care about the R word. And if you're not familiar with the R word, I made you look it up before. If you watch some of the earlier videos, it's calling somebody a retard or calling somebody retarded. And there's a very strong push to say, hey, that's not a word that we should be using. So that's just one example, though, of a multitude of messages that maybe we should or shouldn't be conveying to other people. So my question for you is this, and please put in the comments below, what are your thoughts on this no filter idea, this no filter concept? Are you using it in a way that's just, hey, I'm straightforward communicating and I'm going to be an honest person and you're not going to have to guess what's going on with me? Or maybe you're using it because it alleviates you from the responsibility of caring about your communication. Could be both. It could be for the good, for the most part, and then a few times you get lazy and it's just, I don't have a filter. That's my excuse. I want you to take a look at that. Only because when we do that self-examination, It makes us better people. Okay, that's today's 10 at 10. If you have to bounce out, bounce out. But what we're going to do for the next 10 minutes is we're going to dive into this idea of political correctness. So on the subject of political correctness, I call it compelled speech, because political correctness has an implication that, well, we want to do things right. And of course, political correctness has a negative connotation in the sense that when people say, well, that's just political correctness, there's an implication that you're being forced to do something because politically you have to do it. In other words, to look right to other people, to satisfy other people, you have to do this. And the reality is that the term compelled speech is more honest and forthright about it. If we're going to remove the R word from our language, you're compelling me to not use a word that I grew up using, I grew up hearing. Now, the reason that there are advocates who are saying, no, you shouldn't use retard or retarded is because it hurts people. Well, in our communication, my belief is that as much as possible, we should be able to communicate in a way that doesn't hurt people. Now, there are some times when you're going to hurt somebody. You're unintentionally, you're going to have the impact that does cause harm. And you have to decide whether that's important to you or not. There might be somebody who's causing you harm and you're lashing back. It's a natural human response. Is it our higher self? No, but it's still part of being human. So as we look at how we communicate with the people in our life, and I don't care whether it's at work, with your peers or your subordinates or the superiors that you're working with, or you're at home, or you're out in the grocery store, standing in the line waiting to check out at the Vons or the Safeway or the Ralphs or whatever grocery store chain you're at. You're communicating with other people all the time. And how you choose to show up in this world, well, that's who you are as a person. And I always encourage people to think about, how are you showing up in this world? You know, a friend of mine told me many years ago, about 9 years ago, that people are doing the best that they can with the information and knowledge and skills that they have at the time. And as a police officer, being a little bit cynical, I immediately dismissed that. No, that's not true. Not all of us. I think a lot of us are, but there's a lot of people who are not doing the best that they can. They're doing the worst that they can. And my friend said, well, that's the best that they can. They're showing up the worst that they can, but that's their best. They're giving it their best. And they're choosing how they're going to show up at that moment. And I know, as I looked at that statement, through the years, I've tried to wrap my head around it as I gain more information, as I gain more perspective about life, as I talk to more people, and as I wrap my head around that, I see more and more that most of the time, people really are doing the best that they can. You know, you might have a relative who just rubs you the wrong way. Most of us do. And in that moment, you think, why is that person saying or doing that thing that they're doing that rubs you the wrong way? Maybe they don't know better. Maybe that is the best that they know how to communicate. Maybe they aren't listening to information like 10 at 10, where I talk about communication skills. They haven't had the opportunity to have their eyes opened up. And they haven't had the opportunity or the care to be able to grow, to take their personal development to a new level. You know, for the longest time, I didn't know about the personal development world. I knew about like self-help books in a bookstore, but I didn't know about some of the the big names like Tony Robbins or Brendan Burchard, or, when I first heard about Brendan Burchard, I dismissed him. I thought he was just a young guy who didn't really know anything, and he was certainly not polished when I first ran across him. And today he's very polished, and he's really refined his messaging, and he's actually been a source of inspiration to me in living a better life and showing up better in this world. So there's people that will come into your life that you might not pay much attention to, but you'll end up wrapping around with them later. And I love that about how the universe works. It brings people in at the right time. And sometimes it's just a taste. It's sort of like when you go to the ice cream store and you get just like a little taste, a little spoon of ice cream. And you're like, yeah, I'm not sure I'm up for that flavor, because that's a summertime flavor and it's the fall, and I want the pumpkin and the cinnamon and that kind of flavor, because that's just like a fall and winter flavor. But in the summertime, that doesn't taste so good. And so you might get some information. You might even be able to get information today that you're like, I'm not really down for that, Carrie. Yeah, I understand what you're doing at TPO, Tomorrow's Police Officer, but I'm just not into that. And next week, your life situation changes, and you're like, yeah, I really need some more information. So we're constantly working on stuff here at Tomorrow's Police Officer. In fact, one of the things I'm working on is going to be released in it will be by the end of this week, by Friday. It's going to be up on the website and tomorrowspoliceofficer.com. And it's going to be 5 ways to develop ninja communication skills. Because there's certain things that you can do when you communicate with somebody else that they're ninja-like. They're literally, what I show you how to do is reach into somebody's brain and flip a switch, and they don't even realize that you're doing it. And this works amazingly well. It's not manipulation. You're not doing it for evil purposes. You're not doing it to screw with somebody. You're doing it in order to be able to communicate better. You're doing it to be able to have better rapport with somebody. You're doing it for a better outcome. And these tools and techniques, I'm just going to have 5 that are available immediately. And our courses go into a whole lot more. And what we do is we use neuroscience and personality science in order to communicate better with people, to be able to speak the words that people can hear best. It's like speaking a certain language. If you only speak Spanish and I'm only speaking English, we're not going to be communicating real well. I'll pick up some of your words and you'll pick up some of mine. But if I can speak the same language that you're speaking, you're going to hear me better. You're going to understand me better. And that's where we're going with this. So as we look at compelled speech, as we look at forcing somebody through fear, through pressure of a bad outcome, the cancel culture, to change their speech, I think we have to take a really hard look at that. I mean, our country was founded the very first amendment to the Constitution is free speech. But you can't yell fire in a crowded building. That's compelled speech. So as a society, we agreed that yes, you have the right to free speech. At the same time, there are certain things that you can't do. So as we look at what words we use, please look at the impact that you have on other people. As you look at the words that you use in self-talk, look at the impact that you have on yourself. Is it the impact you want to have? If it's not, change your languaging. How do you know what languaging to use? Check us out at Tomorrow's Police Officer, and I'll be happy to help you with that. Until tomorrow, please stay safe. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.